Now, the Leveson inquiry, because everybody's going on that the accredited media are holier than thou. I think you've been keeping a little eye on the Leveson inquiry, which is into the practice and ethics of the press, of the accredited press. And they've been involved in illegal activities, basically sick sort of stuff. This is the accredited media doing, and us bloggers have never done this ourselves. So in reality, the accredited media, what we found, aren't regulated. They're not regulated in reality. The PCC are a complete waste of time. So why have they got carte blanche all the time over here?
Good question. I do understand where you're coming from, because when Deputy Trevor Pittman actually made a question in the States to myself as President of the Chairman's Committee about filming, I did look into this and did a little bit of research in terms of actually who does hold the media to account. They're supposed to hold politicians to account in terms of exposing certain things and whether they do investigative journalism, which is questionable over here. Yeah. And I mean, I looked into, and it is a very, very big grey area. We don't have anything in Jersey in legislation as such that will allow us to regulate media directly. Whether we want to go down that road, there lays a big question mark. Is it an area that economic development need to look at? Big question mark. But I have to agree. I mean, how do you hold the media to account when there is feeling, and maybe it's more perception, because obviously, as much as I'd like to look into this more, there is other things that I've had to look into with my role. But the Leveson inquiry does certainly bring up some very serious concerns.
Relationships with politicians, relationships,
Absolutely.
The media, too closey, too nice. It's happening all the time over here. We see it all the time. Yeah. And so obviously you would have read the report done by Deputy Trevor Pittman, Deputy Daniel Wimberley and Roy Larissiere of the BDO Alta report, the scrutiny report, and its recommendations.
Yes.
Now, it's that report showed the local state media as well. It was appalling. Some of it, the stuff was just appalling reporting that was going on. And one of its recommendations, you just mentioned earlier, was that the state media over here should be investigated. There should be a scrutiny panel set up, as there is with the Parliamentary Select Committee. There should be one similar set up by here, over here. Is this something that you will take on as chairman to get a scrutiny panel together to investigate our state media?
I believe the Chairman's Committee have actually discussed this at a meeting the 10th of January, I believe it was, because we did discuss it before the question was asked in the States by Deputy Trevor Pittman about whether we'd set up a scrutiny panel. The decision that was made that we wouldn't set up a scrutiny panel to look into it. I have actually spoken to Trevor because I do believe it is a concern, the way that the media are. Not just here, but I think everywhere, to be honest.
Well, surely that it's not going to do any harm to look into a scrutiny panel, to look into the code, the ethics and the practices of our local media.
The difficulty lies within which scrutiny panel that would come under. Chairman's Committee can't just set up a standard scrutiny panel that just comes out of nowhere. This goes by our standing orders, and this goes by our codes of practice that we have.
Well, what about setting one up, as there is in England? I think there's a culture, media and sport. Why can't you just latch on the media to the education, sport and culture, or just latch it onto there? There's got to be something brought up for the media.
But there's no policy or legislation that we can use in order to scrutinise. There is nothing in terms of the evidential that would be brought forward for us to actually review and investigate in terms of scrutiny, policy and standing orders. That's where it lays very, very difficult for us. In terms of what we're able to do and our remit and our resource especially, in terms of how far would we have to go with this and exactly what is it in terms of focus to ensure that we produce a productive report at the end of it that we need to look at. And I think that comes into the major issue. Now, if you were to have ED, to say, right, we will look into the possibility of regulating, then we could certainly scrutinise ED's intentions.
Yeah. What is, to finish on, Deputy, and I want to thank you for giving me this interview, because none of your other chairmen would. They didn't even answer my email when I asked for it, and you were the only one to answer me and agree to an interview. So you should be thanked for that. What is your, not with your chairman's hat on, your personal view on bloggers, such as the local blog scene in Jersey?
I personally don't have an issue with it as such. I've never really had a problem with it, but then again, I've never been interviewed by yourselves. This is the first time.
But you've seen a lot of interviews.
I've seen a lot of interviews. I pick up every now and then what you do. I keep an eye on general public gleamings, etc., etc. And I don't personally have an issue with it. And talking to other members who have been filmed by you, they don't really have an issue with it. And especially with the protocol that we've put in, is I can't understand if we're saying only the first 5 minutes of filming, whether it be accredited media or bloggers or citizens media, I can't understand the issues, and I think that's why I find it difficult to explain how the reason came, well, the conclusion that was made by the Chairman's Committee when I wasn't there. In my own personal view, I mean, this is something else that I'm going to say explicitly with the chairman at the next meeting, because
they've got no reason to exclude us, but there's no real reason to exclude us, is there?
Well, in my own personal view, I don't see the reason for excluding you. I mean, I really can't. I really rack my brains as to understanding what reason there could be, and if it was a case of uncomfortability, then in my view, I wouldn't want the accredited media then. I personally came, not to blows as such, but under false reporting by Channel Television themselves quite early on in my political career. And it's very difficult for a young person, especially when they go into politics, especially in a very conservative island like we have, to make something of themselves in terms of keeping your reputation and trying to make sure that you're doing a good job. You obviously have to have the media side of things, but when they start twisting your words like they did with me, and then when they turn around and say, oh, you can have another interview just to, rectify it, but then completely go in a different fashion and just make you look a fool.
Well, we've just seen the latest with that, with Deputy Pittman again, with the guns and petrol bombs.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, media can make politicians look like fools if they have the facts and they've done the investigative journalism to prove that they've been a fool in their jobs. But I don't see any of that from our accredited media, and that's what really bothers me. I've got no problem going in front of a camera or going on the radio or going to the JP, as long as it's the facts, and maybe you've got the opinions.
As long
of
as
other
the interviewer
people.
is researched.
Well, as long as it's been researched, and you get proper questions. Whereas, okay, you've said that, but in this document it states blah 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 blah. So how does it correlate? That you don't get any of that, and it does concern me, because I think if the media were a lot more investigative in their workings, not only would it prove to help the public, but it would also help scrutiny to a certain extent as well, in the way that we do our workings. It does baffle me. I mean, the Jersey Evening Post turning around saying, look what we've done about the exposure of this money. They put a code of access for information in. Yeah. That's it.
In fact, I believe people like, again, Philip Ozef actually played a big part in getting this exposed. The golden handshake business, same as like Deputy Trevor Pittman again, and Deputy Bob Hill. There was a few of them. There
was a lot of people involved in it. There was a lot of people. And that's what I think we've got to realise. In politics in Jersey, it's not just one person that works to get something done. A lot of people work together to actually get something done. So when people turn around and say, oh, well done, Chief Minister, for doing this, what people don't realise is he would have had to release that information anyway, because as per GAAP accounting, you have to release the figures.
Well, but the reason they don't know this and they don't realise is because the media isn't telling them it.
Well, they don't, or either don't understand or don't do investigative journalism.